Yes, it's still Rise and Shine Daily. Thank you for joining us again. And right now we in the studio, we have a very special guest in our midst in the person of Abasiama Nkanta. She's an educationist and an advocate for child abuse. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you again.
Thank you, thank you.
No,
particularly, sorry, yeah. I like the frame on you. I like the frame.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's recommended, not recommended.
Anyway, normally we would have asked you how was your journey here, but you've been here before, so it's fine. All right, let's just jump right into it. Yeah.
She asked the question when she was here.
Oh yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay, let me still pose a question. Are you a lover of nature?
Yeah.
And that means you love our beautiful hills.
Very well. No, it's not funny anyway, but I love it.
Oh, you say it's not funny?
Not funny.
Okay, just before you came in, we've been talking about child abuse.
Okay.
Now we understand that, UNICEF has, made us to understand, there's a report that a child is, anybody under the age of 18. But yet we get to still see people, inflicting harm and pain everywhere. And then 6 out of 10 children, still experience abuses of different nature, physical abuse, and all that. Now, tell us in your own words, how bad is this in today's society?
I'll start by saying that the number that UNICEF came up with is just a number that is recorded. So if we want to add the number of child abuse cases that are not recorded, of course the number will certainly increase. And child abuse cases it's becoming very increasing and alarming because there is no day I don't come across child abuse case. Not even, let me say the list is 2. Even while I was coming here, I saw one.
Now let's get this straight. What in your own description is child abuse? Because this varies across tribes and countries.
Okay.
What in your own opinion is a standard, or would you say is child abuse?
Child abuse is inflicting pain on a child, on a minor, and the pain can either be physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, or even mental health. Okay. So it's inflicting, applying force, leaving a scar or a pain on a child. So it's vast.
Oh, so whooping, is it part of that?
Sorry?
Whooping, like to flog the child.
So,
sure.
Hang on. Let me come in there. We're in Africa.
I know.
Nigeria, precisely.
I know.
Akwa Ibom State in particular.
Now stream it out to you. And
you understand?
Yes,
this
sir.
is where we are. And it's pretty much our norm, so to speak, a way of life, if you like. Yeah, when a child does something wrong, the child is beaten.
Okay.
Now, are you saying that we should not beat our children? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying you should not beat your
okay,
children.
now, so
but
explain
what promotes the beating you're giving to that child?
Now, I'm talking in a case where the child did something wrong.
Very good. The child did something wrong. You could either use another measure than beating. You're beating the child out of anger, not out of love.
Okay. Now let's get to understand something. Now, we understand that...
I'll come back to that.
Yeah, I'm building on his question.
All right, great.
Now, help us understand the difference between corrective measure and inflicting pain.
Okay.
Yes.
Corrective measure is communicating with a child to improve the child's behavior or performances, especially if other method has not been resulting to your own expectation, and you do that in love. You are communicating. But abuse is inflicting pain. Like I said, the child did something wrong, and then you inflict pain just to take the child back on the right track that you wanted the child to be.
Okay, I would still like to add this. In the case where you have tried all corrective measures and the child still does the exact same thing, don't you feel, or do you feel it would be out of place to flog?
No, children obey the principle of do what I do, not do what I say. So if you've been doing this and then the child is not responsive, why not do it yourself and let the child see that you're doing it? And the child will believe, it's possible, my mom is actually doing it.
Okay.
So where is the place of the scripture that said
It's ready, right?
Oh my God, the Nigerian parents have actually used that to abuse their children a lot. I came across a child that has so many scars. I'm like, what is this? He said as long as she's concerned, her mother believes in beating. And if she beats you and there is no scar, she will not believe that you've learned any lesson.
My goodness.
So the sky is
So using that same Bible says, don't provoke your children to anger. So why don't parents quote this one? They leave that one to the other one.
Okay, now
So are you saying? Sorry, are you saying that it's maybe the place of parents? Maybe they actually provoked their children and then they behaved in that way. So now they are now inflicting pain. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying, because there is no parent that, let me use a real situation. You want your child to wake up in the morning, sweep the floor and do all that. You as a parent, if you wake up in the morning to do that, then the following day, the child will know that this is the right thing to be done when I wake up. But when you don't do it for the child to see, where will the child learn from?
Okay, so in other words, it's more a function of doing for the child to do.
Sure.
Now, it's great. It sounds great, but you see, this is Africa.
Still get back down here.
This is Nigeria, and we're in Akwa. And it's easy to do this in other climes, other civilized climes. It's okay, it's fine. But here, where we believe strongly that if a child is not acting right, I know there's something that's on social media, says there's a certain country tried to change the mindset of their people, and it took them years. But in Africa, it's a few seconds, just few seconds. How do we do that? A mother slap on the child's face will reset the person's brain immediately, help the person think straight. Now, no, it's a proven fact anyway, but then are you telling me that the child now should not be beaten because the beating itself is inflicting pain, and so it's called child abuse? That's one. I'm coming. Two, in a case scenario where this child is not responsive to the do and do concept,
Okay.
what do you suggest?
Okay, your first question, if a child is not responsive,
Let's start there.
what should, I would not totally say they should abolish beating. I would not totally say that. But there are some action a child exhibits, and then you know that this action doesn't need beating.
Right.
But since we are in Africa,
Almost
the only option that they have is beating. There are some action, there are some behavior a child puts up. You know that sitting the child down to talk as if you're talking to an adult, even by mistake, the child can never repeat that. But beating, the child will only believe, I mean, after all, if I do it, it's just beating. So the child has developed soft skin, a bit thick skin. So it's a matter of what did the child do that warrants the beating. Did you beat the child out of love or out of anger?
Okay.
Now, how do you beat out of love and out of anger? Because
okay,
I mean, once the child commits, let's say, disobeys, or maybe does the wrong thing that you have cautioned over time, and the person still repeats, it's unnatural that
you're angry. You're getting angry.
Yeah.
That is why I am putting it. But can you, if a child, personally, I deal with children a lot. If they offend me, what I do is, in as much I would like to abuse you, but I'll remember that, man, I'm an advocate of this thing, I shouldn't do it. The next thing I will do, I will just tell myself, you don't need to do that. Leave a child to be a child. A child will always be a child. And the next thing I will tell the child is, do you know you're a great person? Do you know that this thing you just did does not depict where you're heading to? Do you know that in the future you're supposed to be a governor? Is this how a governor should behave? The anger has totally died, and I continue. Before you know, you see them running, boss, thank you, I love you.
Okay.
So sometimes you need to play down on your anger.
Okay.
Right
I
now,
see that now.
Let's look at something else. We are saying parents should not, often, beat their children often. Now, some of them have resorted to, raining verbal abuse on their children. Seeing skin is not working. They know that if I beat you, if I spank you, you will not hear. You just submit your bonbon for spanking.
So
I'm going to use my words. So now we've seen that the effect of this verbal abuse is on the increase.
Yeah.
Now, what in your own words could be done to that?
In one of my books, Child Abuse and Social Development, chapter 3, page 24, I address that.
Okay.
And I say that verbal abuse does not just leave the child untouched. Verbal abuse affects a child psychologically. It affects the child emotionally. It affects the child mentally, even behaviorally. It affects the child academically. Because a child can be intelligent, but heading to class, a teacher might just ask, what is, he knows that thing very well, but the verbal abuse that the words of the mother is repeatedly playing in the child's brain. And that can shut up a child's brain, can shut down a child's brain. So in as much as parents have resorted to using verbal abuse instead of, flogging, it is the worst part of abuse.
Yeah.
Okay. It is the worst.
Okay.
So now let me quickly ask you, how can a teacher or a caregiver recognize a child who's going through trauma of these abuses?
That is why philosophy and psychology comes in, because it's so clear that a lot of teachers that we have in school are just venturing into teaching profession because there are no other jobs. Because if you are a skilled and a trained teacher, personally, once I enter a class, I can easily detect a child that is going through verbal abuse. Because once you're talking to that child, the child is scared. Once you're talking to the child cannot be expressive. You are asking questions, the child is looking at you, the brain is trying to interpret the question you're asking. So before the child gets to give you the answer, it takes time.
So any other signs there, apart from getting scared, any other warning
apart
signs?
Apart from getting scared, the child will have a withdrawal syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very rare before you see the child playing with play. You just have a withdrawal syndrome.
Just stay on its own.
Stay on its own. Because he's thinking, before I'll now go and do something else and then I'll be abused. He thinks he can never do anything right.
Now, we have cases of child abuse that has been reported.
Yeah.
So we have people, ministries in charge of child abuse. I mean, we have the Child Rights Act. So are you saying in your own words that the actions or implementing these, rules against people, abusers of children, can you say that these actions, these issues are being slow? Is it slow? Is it too slow to be implemented?
It's very slow as far as I'm concerned. Because if you realize that these children are the future leaders, and then somebody gets to abuse them, and it's being even reported, because I bet you there are a lot of children living that is abused and are living in silence. Now, for the ones that are bold enough to come out to tell you, I have been abused, and then they state it clear. And if such has been reported, I think there shouldn't be waste of time in putting those people to book or bringing them down to book. Because if this is done, the next person that had intention of abusing a child will know that there is a consequences without no playing of any plans that will take place. So it's slow.
Okay, now let me just jump right in. We are aware that cases of child abuse are on the increase. Just like you said, when you come in, you saw one. We've been seeing, right? And it's on the increase. But then statistics still show a certain figure, and then it's alarming because not all of the cases that happened are being reported.
Exactly.
What do you think is the reason for this? I mean, a lot of this is happening, few are being reported. Why is that?
I think personally, mothers have refused to speak out because they feel their children will be stigmatized. Then on the other side, the children have refused to speak out because the people abusing them have threatened them not to speak out. So that's the major challenge.
So what resources are being put in place for children who are being abused, to speak up or maybe try to sort themselves out? Because there are some who might not be able to speak up, but if they get to hear measures they could take to come out of depression or whatever, what resources have been put in place to rehabilitate these children?
I don't really know so far, but what I do is I get to schools, and it was actually working. I talk to children and then let them to understand the types and the effect abuse will have on them.
Yeah.
But I realized that it's not actually really working, because a child will get this knowledge, get back to a parent that is not vested with this knowledge. So it's effort in fertility.
So what don't you think you should rather do the advocacy on the parent?
Yeah, that's what I actually thought. But you know, I can't actually do it alone if I don't have a support. Like going to the market, going to even the local government to do a sensitization on this. So if it comes from the parent's angle, then you tackle it from the children angle, then we will have a less child abuse case.
Okay, before we take a break, now let's understand something. In Nigeria, we still hear sneaky stories about child brides. I'm talking about early marriages. Yeah. We understand also that there are laws that actually ban these things, but still, it's still happening. Now, what would you say could be responsible for that?
Parent ignorance.
Okay.
Sure, because if you're ignorant of the kind of child you gave birth to, you will just cheaply give out the child. But if you're fully aware of your child and the abilities of that child, even if it means selling everything you have, you will see that that child is a successful human being.
Do you think poverty could also be a part of that?
Yes.
Of course, sure. Not poverty in terms of money, poverty of the mind.
I mean poverty in terms of money. Could
That's
it also be part of it?
I don't think it's part of it. I've seen poor people and poor children from a very poor and worse background come out as the best.
That's right.
Okay, we'll take a break right now, and when we come back, the show continues. And just so you know, we are on social media, Facebook and Instagram with the handle at SpectrumTv NG, and of course, you can visit the website at www.spectrumtv.ng. We'll be back after this break. Please stay. It's great to have you back. In case you're just joining in, you are the wee minutes of the show, and it's still Rise and Shine Daily, reaching from the stables of Spectrum Television right here in the beautiful hills of Ibiakura. And we've been playing host to a great woman in the studio who's been shedding a whole lot of light on the subject matter of today, child abuse, and we want to delve into something deeper. Just before we let her go, of course. Now, let's jump right in. Just before the break, she asked a question, child brides and all. Now, let's put something in perspective.
Okay.
There is a thin line, a very thin line between trying to correct your child verbally and actually abusing that child verbally. You see cases where a mother or a father is telling a child, hey, this thing you did was wrong. Why do you always act like a goat or act like an animal? Do you know you are not an animal? It's not like I'm cursing you. It's just figure of speech, but you are behaving like an. Now, where do you draw the line there? Seriously, where?
But you just call the child a goat.
Oh well, that's how they sound, and then tell you that they are not calling you that, but they just want you to understand how you are acting. Right?
But you know the interesting part is that that child has
picked
taken
it
that
already.
word, and then another child, the child will get to call another person. Do you know you're behaving like a goat? And then the cycle continues. So it doesn't just stop with you as a parent transmitting this word to your child. There are other ways you can come about it. Personally, I do advise parents, once you're angry and you are not sure of the words that will come out of your mind, just leave the child at that moment, leave the scene. Just leave the scene. Okay. Because a practical example, I was in one of my, I have so many little friends in one of their houses, and then the girl was actually trying to help the mother mop the floor, but the child ended up messing up the whole kitchen, as in the water just poured everywhere. So the mother came shouting and she was timid. So the words that came out, I'm like, you are hurting this child. Look at it from this other angle that she was just trying to help. So I now went and hugged her. Tears was coming down. So I now had to tell her, no, mommy didn't actually mean that. Mommy was just angry. Okay, go and tell mommy you're sorry. But that's a reverse psychology, because it's the mother that was supposed to tell the child she is sorry.
Now, where's the place? Because most times when, not like the mother who was not going to, make peace with the child. But once it happens like that, and a third party comes in to make the peace, before the mother does, do you advise that should go on? Because that could actually cause resentment between the child and the mother.
No, it won't cause. It depends on how the child regards the person. It depends on how the child regards the person, and it depends on the words the third party used.
Okay, so let's examine sexual abuse. As an advocate for, of child abuse, you help children, come into healing process. Now, we have cases of minors being abused, both boys and girls, and they grow up with this kind of mentality, in their mind. Maybe a girl growing up to hate boys, and maybe a boy growing up to hate girls. Now, what healing process can these kind of persons go through and recover themselves back?
Sexual abuse is one of the stressful abuse that if you don't have patience, you can't help a child to come out of it, because already as a child, they are all born with what I call tabula rasa, that's empty slate. Their mind is empty, their brain is empty. So now if you start registering abuse, sexual abuse in their mind, the thing that will happen to them is that they will not forget. So as they are growing up, the memory is building, the hatred is building for the next gender. So when we talk about sexual abuse, I see it a lot. It will, the healing process that will be very easy is when it's not a family member that actually abused the person. Because the longest healing process I had to take a child through was a case of a father abusing his own child. Then I also have another one of a case of a maid abusing the madam's boy. And the boy was about 4 years, so you can imagine that. And then the other girl was about 12. I actually went to a school to do some child abuse advocate and all that, and I realized that a lot of them had questions to ask, but they couldn't ask because it was a mixed audience, both boys, and so I had to tell them, okay, by so and so time, I'll come back. If you have any question, I'll be open. Just be free. Your secrets are safe with me and all that. And I had to bring myself low to start discussing some things I'm not even supposed to discuss with them, and that is how that one came in to tell me. And by the time we realized, I think she was a month or 3 weeks pregnant, because I had to invite a medical practitioner. So those kind of people, especially the girl on that she got pregnant, a receipt out of this sexual, do you think it will be easy to get her through it? It's not easy. It's not.
It will take a while.
It will take a while. Example, if you normally take a child through healing process when it has to do with verbal abuse, let's say a month. When it has to do with sexual abuse, 6 months.
Well, now, is there a connection between, because we understand most times that this stuff leads to personality disorder. And in our today's society, we have seen cross-dressing become a trend. Is there a relationship, is there a relation between abuse and cross-dressing?
Yeah. There is a relation, because once you are abused, your brain doesn't, it's like it's rewired your brain if something is not done. It's like it rewires your brain. So you get into the society, you're behaving abnormal. I had a staff that normally behave one kind. So I just knew that there's something about this person. You talk to the girl and then the next thing she's picking offense. I'm like, why do you get angry easily? So I had to call her. I leave the office scene, we went to somewhere, we eat, we talk, and then I get to talk deeper and get to ask her some private question. That's how I realized that she was abused, like, I think she said 10 years ago. That's when she was 10 years of age. And now this is an elderly person that is like 28 years plus. And the thing is still affecting her. That's because she didn't go through what I call a healing process. So if a child is abused and that or a parent doesn't submit the child to go through that process, it's a very tedious one, but a child has to go through to help the child become what God actually brought the child to be.
How about if the abuse happened when this person was a little older? Will it also affect, does he have the capacity to affect and bring about that same personality disorder thing?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
That's sad.
Okay, now, just before we let you go or take your final words, we understand that in some states in Nigeria, we have what we call family courts. Now, how effective is this court? That's one. And number two, do you think that this kind of court should be implemented nationwide?
Yeah, how effective it is very effective. It's just that the one that we have here in Akwa Ibom, their priority is at those children that are stigmatized in terms of witches and wizards. They are not you tender child abuse cases. They don't give it utmost importance or attention. They really focus on those that are stigmatized as witches and wizards. And I just wish that the state government will take up the responsibility of also allowing the abuse cases to be in their top-notch what do they call it? Priority. Thank you. And then talking about how effective, of course it is effective. It depends on what is their goal. It depends on their priority.
Okay, now let's quickly let people take advantage of this session now. What are those major things you could tell someone out there who's a victim of an abuse, whatever abuse, verbal, sexual, and even physical abuse? What one thing can an individual do to aid recovery process quickly? Talk
to somebody that you know have the solution to the problem. Because, yeah, a lot of people talk to people that don't have the solution, and then they get to gossip about it. And then when the person is going about it, they say, that's the person that told me the story. And then you make every other person shut up. So talk to somebody that you know have the solution to the problem. I've had situations that I had inboxes in my social media hand. I don't know them, but I just have to admit, I just have to attend to them for the boldness alone to open up.
Yeah.
So if they can actually talk to somebody that has the solution to the problem, it will help reduce the abuse cases we have.
Now, let's talk to parents too. How can a parent identify a child that has been emotionally abused? Because if you say physically abused, maybe you can see the marks, the blood gushing out, but emotionally abused, how can a parent detect, my child has been emotionally traumatized, let me speak with him? How do you identify? What are those signs that a parent can watch out for?
Even if I tell the parent the signs, if they're not emotionally connected to their child, they won't still know.
Okay.
That's right.
So the first step is get emotionally involved, connected to your child. You only connect to a child to correct. You can't correct a child you're not connected to. And then secondly, let me just list few signs. You can withdrawal signs. The child is low in eating, appetite will be low. And then you will notice the child will be telling you few lines of words in order not to say a whole sentence, and then it diverts him to telling you that I have been abused. So if you ask the child, okay, you went to school today, what happened? I went to school today. So you stop there. He will not go further to tell you what happened in school. Talk now. He will just be there looking at you. So withdrawal, low appetite, and then saying a few lines of sentence.
Okay, quickly, how can one deal with anger problem? Because this boils down to anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your quick words, lastly, let's know. Anger with parents, how can they deal with it?
Anger with parents, if you're angry as a parent, if your child offends you and you want to you want to punish your child, just leave the scene first. If you leave the scene, I bet you will forget. The anger will come. Even though I know that there are some exceptions to the rule, there are some people that will even leave their house and still come back and remember what you did.
And the anger comes back
and the anger comes back afresh. But it's read books, attend seminars, seek for help.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not normal.
You just talked about reading books. Sorry to jump in. I saw a post that you made, a certain book that somebody wrote, and it actually has some very strong words, and it's for a child. The book is actually for a child. Now, what kind of books should be recommended, for children? Because a lot of books that have, cartoons, and you feel, it's actually for a child, until you actually get into the content of the book. Now, what are those things that we should look out for first before we buy a book for a child?
I would say read it first. If you don't go through a book from page to page, don't give it to a child. Like the one I posted, it was chapter 10, page 31. But every other chapters are okay. The back drawings, perfect. The letter writing, everything perfect, the front. But when I get to that page, I'm like, what is this person trying to do? That is, you're hiding another thing inside the book to sell to children. So I had to bring it public. And I know the kind of abuse I've been getting from people that seemingly think I shouldn't have brought it to the public. But I mean, I'm a voice to the voiceless, that's the children. So if you as a parent want to buy a book to a child, please read it back to back. And if there is no moral lesson, for example, you want a child to understand what it means to be obedient, get a book in obedience, read it back to back, then you hand it over. Ask the child after the child is done reading the book, what did you learn? Don't just give a child a book and then off you go. No, it's not done that way.
Yeah, that was quite insightful speaking with you on this subject. Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Thank you very much.
I hope we look forward to having you again if need be.
That's a yes, right?
I'm not saying yes yet. I'm not accepted yet.
Yeah, we've been speaking with Abasiama, a child educationist and of course an advocate for child abuse. Join us again. We'll go on a brief time out, and when we return, Rise and Shine continues. Don't go away. Stay with us.